Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Here's my rifle, this is my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday. TGIFF. Welcome to the program, and thanks for coming in and joining us. It is Friday, your chance to sound off and talk about issues of a Second Amendment nature right here on the big radio program. We appreciate you guys coming in and joining us today. As always, Friday. Man, this week just flew right by. I'm not complaining. Don't think that I am, but oof, man, how did we get to Friday so fast? So fast. Well, it's good to see you this morning, and it's good to be with you. I mean, I can't literally see you, but you get the point, right? You get the point. Thank you for coming on board and being part of the show today. So full disclosure this morning. I overslept. I mean, that just never happens. It never happens. But I did. I overslept this morning, and I'm a little discombobulated. I was supposed to have a guest on. We were working on Dr. John Lott being on the program today, and it kind of fell apart. And so I don't have a whole lot planned this morning. Of course, you know, I'm like a wind-up doll. You pull the string and you let me go, and I could talk about firearms and gun rights for 2 hours, no problem. But usually I have some kind of, minor plan outlined as to exactly what I want to cover and everything, throughout a show. Well, this morning, I don't. I mean, I know we're going to talk about some stuff, but I'm still trying to gather my wits, sweep out the old cobwebs this morning. And so if I seem a little discombobulated, that be the case. That's why things are happening that way, which makes it even more important for you to help me out today. We're going to open up the phone lines first thing this morning. And have you help us? Have you help me help me? Why will you help me? Will you? We'll have you drive the bus a little bit, and we're going to open up the phone lines for what we lovingly call Gun Q&A. Now, that is the question and answer portion of the program, and this is where you can call in and ask questions of firearms and about firearms or guns or gun rights or anything else. And that's what we're going to do right now. Phone lines are open at 907-433-3150. Now, the rule on Fridays, and I don't know if this actually applies to the rest of the week, but the rule on Fridays with open line and the gun Q&A is that there is no such thing as a dumb gun question. Okay, because our whole point, our whole job on this day of the week is to try and demystify the firearm and gun ownership and everything else. Now during the rest of the week, I mean there's been some dumb questions. Okay, I mean we acknowledge that there's been some questions, but on Fridays, nope, you get a pass. I don't care if you ask, which is the end that I should point away from me? That's still a valid question, especially since the real target of this show is folks who are, not knowledgeable about firearms, not knowledgeable and don't have the background and maybe are a little too embarrassed to go to a local gun store and ask these questions. So, that I'm all about that. I'm all about answering questions, and of course, you can also ask questions in the chat room, which is available every morning on Facebook and on YouTube. If you would like to, come on in and be part of it, you can go over there to facebook.com/Michael Duke Show and join the live video, or you can go to YouTube, and I think it's YouTube/users/Michael Duke Show, and you should be able to find it. That's where it is. There's no okay. So see, now people are starting to try and challenge my questions on to say that there's no such thing as dumb gun question. There's some questions popping up that are just being sarcastic, which is fine. It's still not a dumb question. It's a funny question. So we've got some questions coming up in the chat room as well right now, which we will do our best to answer. Now, even though I was late, even though I got up late and I didn't necessarily have a full show planned, I do have some stories that I was able to, thank God I'm a speed reader, that I was able to read through this morning, and some of the local news stories, not local, state, national news stories. I do have a little bit of a plan and things that I'm going to talk about. We are going to talk about the situation in Ukraine a bit and the armed citizens there and what a difference that is making. We're going to talk a little bit about the new Catch-22 requirements that the ATF has started to reinterpret their own regulations in regards to people being able to make legal homemade silencers, because most people didn't know that. You were able to actually make your own silencer, suppressor, with the blessing of the ATF if you filled out the proper paperwork and paid the tax stamp and did all that stuff. Some of that is changing. We're going to talk about how you really need to act and think when you are carrying a firearm. Some of the choices that you make, and that when you are, when you're committed to going out there and, going forth armed, so to speak, you got to think about some things and not do stupid stuff. All right. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well. And of course, answer your questions, and we will finish up the whole thing, the whole schlemiel will be, that's not the right use of that word, the whole kit and caboodle. We're going to finish that up with our friend Willie Waffle from wafflemovies.com, who's going to come in and he's going to share with us the weekend movie reviews and everything else. I think we're going to talk about that new Ryan Reynolds movie that I've been waiting to see on Netflix. The, what's it called? The Adam Project. That's it. So I think we're going to talk about that as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing that and seeing where we go from there. All right. So some questions, I guess. So we'll open up. The phone lines are open. 433-3150. Sorry, I'm also a little dry this morning. I didn't get all my water in before we got started here. 907-433-3150. And we got questions. So let me start off with just a few of the questions that are here in the chat room. Chris asks, does anyone have 7.62 by 39 cheaper than 3 Bears? I got to be honest, if you haven't already put away a goodly amount of 7.62 by 39 Russian ammo, it may be too late. I mean, with everything that's going on over there, I don't know of a really good American ammo manufacturer. I mean, I've been buying Russian ammo for 25 years. I've been buying Russian ammo. And I remember when I complained when it went from I think it was $69 1,000 rounds to $81 1,000 rounds. I was squawking so hard, and the dealer just looked at me, the guy that I was buying it from, and he goes, "You think it's going to go down from here, or is it going to go up?" So anyway, I bought another case, even though I was grumbling about it. But my Lord, I should have bought a truckload of Russian ammo at that point, because I think the last time I bought a case of Russian ammo, it was nearly $325 a case. I mean, that's better than precious metals, people. If I had bought a tractor-trailer load of Russian ammo, I could have probably turned that into a Google-sized fortune. You know what I mean? It's crazy what's going on with that. So the answer is, does anyone have 7? I don't even know anybody who has it for sale cheaper. I don't even know what Three Bears is charging for that. But if you see it, you might want to just consider buying it at this point if you're desperate for it, because I don't think it's going to get any better. That's just, with this whole, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen with Ukraine and everything else, but I can tell you this for nothing. Russia is going to be persona non grata for a while. That's just the bottom line. Russia is not going to be have favored nation status for a while. Okay. Wow. Chris just dropped me the price in the chat room for Wolf ammunition, which is a Russian brand, Wolf. $599 for 1,000 rounds of Russian 7.62 by 39. Man, if I had bought a tractor-trailer load, I could be making money right now, hand over fist. But I didn't, and so there's no putting that toothpaste back in the tube. But yeah, I fully expect that there will probably be a shortage, and you might want to be shooting some other rifles for a while until that comes. I mean, who knows? It may take 10 years for whatever's going on in the Ukraine to wear off and have people actually want to do business with Russia again in the future. But if you've got Russian ammo, you probably want to hold on to it. And if you see it, you may want to buy another 1,000 rounds just in case. Just in case. Dan also asked some questions in the chat room, which we're going to get to here as well. And then Daniel is mocking me this morning with the dumb gun question. He says, and I'm going to go to the phones here in a second, but he says, in a gas-operated rifle, where do I put the gas? And with the rising gas prices, what are my alternative? Hardy, har. For those of you who don't know, a gas-operated rifle is not operated by gasoline. It is operated by the gas that expands in the chamber when the bullet is fired, and that gas operation runs the piston or the bolt group inside of a rifle and causes it to cycle. So when they say it's a gas-operated rifle, it's, you know what I mean. It's, Daniel, you are funny man this morning. Funny man. All right, let's go over to the phones, and we'll start things off this morning with some more gun Q&A. Like I said, I do have some stories, but I'm very grateful to any help that you'd like to give this morning in talking about guns and gun stuff and everything else. So let's go over to make sure everything's turned up. Let me go over to the phones here, and we'll get things started. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Tom from Fairbanks.
Morning, Tom. What's on your mind, sir?
I recently was driving from Fairbanks to Delta, and I happened to find a bunch of ammunition all over the roads. And I think it came off of a convoy, but they're 30 millimeter, and I looked it up, and it said it's armor-piercing, high explosive rounds. Well, the ones that I picked up, and I actually gave it to a military fellow that I've met.
Right.
And he thanked me, but I'm just wondering, is it against the law for me to possess it?
Possession of ammo, I am unsure of. I don't think so. I mean, you'd have to have something to fire it in. I don't believe possession of ammo is the problem. 30 millimeter high explosive. This is like Vulcan. This is like Vulcan or rotary cannon stuff, right? I mean, this is stuff that comes like out of an A10, right?
The military dude that I gave it to said it fires out of the Apache helicopter.
Oh, okay. So that's same kind of stuff. You know, I don't know, is it illegal for you to own it, but I don't know what you'd do with it. I mean, it makes an interesting conversation.
Well, I have a bullet collection I've started when I was like 10 years old, so I wanted to put it with my collection, but
sure.
I just wanted to know, is it against the law for me to possess that round?
I'm thinking about it. You know, maybe because of the high explosive component of it, it may be classified as a destructive device. But I'm not sure. I know that, like, I mean, I have the same kind of thing. I've got a bullet collection of a few, you know, otter bullets that I've collected over the years, and I have a round out of an A10. It's a dummy round, but it's, you know, it shows me the size and everything else. But the explosive component, because it is an explosive round, that might be classified as a destructive device. And
well, I just to let you know, they were scattered all over the road on the way from Fairbanks to Delta.
Daniel and
it must have fell off of
like it fell off of
or something. But they were. I was driving over them with my truck.
The supply, yeah, no, not a good thing. Is it Daniel in the chat room says yes, destructive device because of HEDP, which is the high explosive. Is it? He's asking also, is it a blue body? Is the body of it blue?
It is blue.
Yeah.
So I think I did a little bit of research. I think it's inert.
Well, it's interesting. Ken also makes the point in the chat room that it would be illegal because it's considered government property. But I mean, if you've attempted to try and give back some of it or whatever, you know, that's an interesting. It's an interesting question. I don't know what I would do at all. I'd probably gather it up and put it in a box and give it to somebody on Fort Wainwright or something. But you know, because otherwise you don't really have any. You don't really have any use for it other than if it is inert, maybe, you know, having one in your collection. I don't know. I guess your mileage may vary. You'll have to make that decision. But I would say if it is actually high explosive, that you could fall under the whole destructive device thing. It says inert training round, says Daniel. So, the blue is an inert training round. So if it's a training round, then you're probably good. But, you know, who knows? Maybe eBay. Your mileage.
Well, thank you very much.
Your mileage may vary.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for calling in and joining us on the program.
All right.
Yeah, I've never considered that. I mean, I've got some weird ammo and casings and things that I've collected over the years. I mean, I've got a 105 millimeter howitzer casing that I use as a stand in my garage, in my workshop for like dowel rods and stuff. I mean, it's a big, you know, shell casing. That I use for that, and I picked up some interesting things over the years. But you're kind of, especially if it's a dummy round, then you probably are good to go. And I mean, I'd love to look at one when we come to do the gun show up in Fairbanks next month. Tom, you know, bring me one by. I'd be interested in taking a look at it. It would be interesting to see. But there you go. All right, folks, got to go. Running late. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll be back right after this. I ran right over the thing over that, didn't I? Anyway, do what you can afford, says Daniel. That's interesting. I have a round that is out of an A10. I have an expended shell casing out of an A10, and then I have a couple dummy rounds that have been gifted to me over the years by people because they know my interest in firearms and guns and things like that. So I have kind of this little collection of interesting shells, conversation pieces more than anything else, of dummy and expended rounds with different casings and things. But I do love that. That howitzer casing because it's nice, it's heavy, and I can stick all my wooden dowels and things that I need into it. It's very cool. just looking at, just a thought, 400 Somalians were reported at the border 2 years ago, crossing the border armed. Why were they coming here? Coming here to Alaska? 400 Somalians crossing into the border into Alaska? I don't know anything about that. Have a relative who lives near the Guernsey firing range in eastern Wyoming. Lots of expended live rounds laying on the ground. Live and can explode. Due to weather changes, some of the rounds explode with no warning. I've never heard of that. But I guess anything is possible for that. Chris says, I'm waiting for Tesla to make an electric rifle. We should be moving away from petroleum-based firearms. Since Tesla is an electrical, car company, I keep waiting for somebody to make a Gauss rifle, right? I mean, that's what I'm, that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for somebody to come up with a Gauss rifle that shoots a railgun, right? A handheld railgun. That's what I'm waiting for. What was the name of that? What was the name of that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he and I can't remember who the bad guy was in that one. It wasn't Gabriel Byrne. That was The Sixth Day. But they were walking around with handheld railguns shooting at each other through stuff. I can't remember what that one was called. But is that Erasure? Is that the one that it was? Was that Erasure? Anyway, always fascinated by that. Eraser. Yeah, thank you, Dan. That's always interested me. I keep waiting for somebody to come up with a handheld. Theoretically, they've had the theory on that railguns for 80 years or something like that. The problem is the power. You'd have to carry a city power plant around on your back to be able to shoot the damn thing, to create enough juice to shoot the flechette or the round or the slug or whatever it is down the deal, because it takes so much damn power. But who knows? Maybe Elon Musk will figure it all out in the long run. That would be. I'd buy that for $1, right? I'm just sad I missed out on the whole Tesla flamethrower thing, or the Boring Company whichever it was. When he was selling those flamethrowers. He sold out of those things. As soon as I heard about it, I went on the site. I'm like, I got to buy one of these. And they were all sold out immediately. James Caan was the bad guy in Eraser. My God, how long has it been since I watched that movie? It's been a long time, but it really stuck with me, the whole thing with the railguns. Because, railguns are nasty. In theory. You accelerate a piece of metal to, thousands and thousands of miles an hour. Just the kinetic energy of that is, oof, man. Okay. I thought the problem was the size of the magnet, says Kenneth. Well, yeah, but you got to charge the magnets. There's multiple problems, but theoretically it could happen, but it takes a lot of power. Anyway, let's jump back into it. Here we go, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share the show. Like and follow the show page. Let's get going. Wow, this morning completely not off the rails, but just kind of random. We were just talking during the break about somebody made a sarcastic comment because of the whole gas-powered rifle thing that we talked about earlier. Chris in the chat room said he was waiting for Tesla to make an electric rifle. We should be moving away from petroleum-based firearms, which made me comment about how the fact that I was hoping that one day Tesla would be able to create a a rail gun, a Gauss rifle, because of their expertise in electricity and electric motors and everything else. There is actually which for those of you who don't know, a Gauss rifle or a rail gun takes a piece of inert metal, magnetically, of some kind of ferrous metal that can be attracted by a magnet, and it runs it down a channel that's surrounded by a series of magnets over the length of, however long it is, from feet to yards. And it accelerates the chunk of metal utilizing those magnets. It accelerates it faster and faster to where, theoretically, if you had a long enough railgun, you could theoretically get a piece of metal accelerated to an appreciable component of c, the speed of light. 200,000. You could really accelerate if you had a long enough railgun. But the bottom line is that and the theory has been around for 80 years, 100 years. The problem, of course, is the technology to make it work as far as the switching and the power and the magnets and everything else. But it's an interesting thing. Although a company did put out a railgun, and it shoots little metal discs, and it's more of a novelty thing than anything else. I watched a video on it about 3 months ago because I'm always fascinated by that kind of stuff. And I'm trying to, what is it called? It's called there it is. Demolition Ranch did it here. A few weeks ago. I guess it was back in September. Anyway, they went out and they tried this system. And it is, it's called the, I can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, it's got its own little, it shoots these little discs out there, and it's called the E. Is that right? The E shotgun. The E. You can go take a look at it if you want. It's the e-shotgun.com. And it shoots these little discs. Now it doesn't shoot them fast enough to really hurt. It's kind of more just of a novelty item than anything else. But because in their demo they show pretty clear that it doesn't work. It doesn't have nearly the stopping power or anything else of an actual real deal. But it's interesting that they were able to pull it all together and put it into this compact little cartridge. Anyway, the E-Shotgun is what you can go take a look at, e-shotgun.com. And you should go, if you have an interest in any of that, and I don't know why you would. Again, this is why I probably should not sleep in and get up early. But you could go out there and take a look at it. They've got the Demolition Ranch did a whole demo on it. I watched it here a couple months ago. Anyway, it's pretty cool stuff. So, all right. What else we got going on? Well, phone lines are still open. So if you want to sound off this morning, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. We still have more stories to cover from around the country, including what not to do if you've decided that you are going to go forth armed. We're going to talk about that here in a minute as well. Let's, I guess we'll continue with some phone calls and see what we've got going on over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, hi, this is Mayor Brady from Las Vegas.
Hello, Mr. Brady. How are you, sir?
Doing fine. I wanted to ask you if you knew about the ammo company in Scottsdale, Arizona that gave 1 million rounds to that cokehead Zelensky.
No, I didn't. I didn't hear about the company that 1 million rounds of ammo they sent it overseas.
Yes, they sent it to the Ukraine. They should have been sending it to Vlad. I would rather see it go to Vlad because he is liberating the Ukraine from the Nazi Jew, satanic cokehead Nazi.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not. I I mean, I know that that's the story on Russian media, is that they're all Nazis. I mean, that, even though Zelensky is a Jew, and I'm trying to figure that out. But what are you being sarcastic, or are you serious here?
No, I'm straight up. The Azov Battalion, that's the portion of the Ukraine army, is 100% satanic Nazis. The patches that they wear on their armbands are from the Panzer Division of Himmler's Panzer Division in World War II. So it is a direct link, and I've seen plenty of videos where his nose is stuck whiter than Hunter Biden. It looks like he got a half a can of Parmesan cheese stuck in his nose.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Brady. I mean, I don't see the comparatives. I don't buy into the rhetoric that they are a Nazi division and that they are out there doing all. I mean, again, to me, that's propaganda on that. I'm not saying that there was not reasoning why Russia did what they did. I don't agree with the justification. Part of it was because if we would quit dangling the whole NATO thing in front of the nose of Ukraine, this wouldn't have happened. But I don't see it as I just don't see any proof that the Nazis had taken over the Ukrainian government. Which of course is what's being put out there and broadcast to all the Russian people in Russia, that they are denazifying the Ukraine if somehow. I find that hard to believe.
You need to look at the movie Oliver Stone, Ukraine at War, and if you watch that video and it's on BitChute, you can call it up. Watch the history of Ukraine at war, and it's 100% Nazis from basically the 40s until now. It has not changed, and all the biolabs that Vlad found over in the Ukraine, up to 34 now, were all funded by Obama, started in 2005. George Soros, Klaus Schwab, the New World Order, which I would like to call the Jew World Order. That is who's behind it. And that's the reason why Vlad went and liberated the Ukraine and taken it back from the Nazis.
Okay. I'm a little confused about how somehow the Jews are responsible for the New World Order and how the Jews are part of the Nazi regime. That seems to be a little counterintuitive, Brady. But, hey, I appreciate you calling in and giving us your thoughts this morning, even though I probably couldn't more vehemently disagree with them. In that regard. I've seen some of those things. When the Ukrainian invasion first happened, somebody called from Fairbanks and was saying how, Putin was in the right and, all this kind of stuff because of the Nazis and the things. But, trying to conflate the whole, that it's a Jewish problem with Nazism and I'm sorry, my brain can't wrap around that kind of I don't have enough tinfoil in the studio here to make all that work. Sorry, I just don't have enough to make all that work. It is Firearms Friday. We're talking about guns and firearms. This might be a good point to bring up the Ukraine, and there's a couple different articles out there which I think have been following this, doing very well in following this. The Wall Street Journal has been putting up articles that are interviews with different people on the street, people who have been fighting, and where they come from and what they're doing. They quote Maxim Karuchkin, who had many personal and professional ties to Russia, but he's a Ukrainian-born playwright, and he is now one of the thousands of men and women who've taken up arms to defend his country. In his interview to the Wall Street Journal, he described the number of newly armed citizens as a army of the free people. He's serving alongside taxi drivers, computer programmers, journalists, citizens from all different walks of life and all these different political opinions who are all basically united behind a premise that they will be free. The Journal has done a pretty good job of sharing all these different stories of some of the more well-known and influential members of this free people army that are out there, including one of the rock stars from the rock group Boombox, and also the fact that one of television stars was out there. He got killed in the shelling the other day. He was in one of the Ukrainian defense groups, and he they were doing it. But one of my favorite quotes is from a woman named Kira Rudik. She's a lawmaker and a former business executive. She picked up a gun and gathered up a group of a dozen party members and friends at her house, and they've gone out and they've started to fight. She said, I looked at my house, at my family, my home, my cat, and realized that everything that I love is here. Why should I leave? Because Putin has decided to take what's ours? And I mean, that sentiment is pretty much what I think people are fighting for. They're fighting for their homes. You're never going to find people more resilient than those who are fighting for their homes and families. And thank goodness they have the ability to fight back and are armed. And the fact that the government was loosening the gun laws and everything else, and then passing out rifles and everything, that is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. All right, well, we're up against the break. I got a couple lines on hold. We're going to be right to you here, guys. Don't go anywhere if you're on the phone. But I do have to, since I was late for the last one, I've got to pay the bills and get out the door. So we're going to head out here, and we'll be back in just a moment. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen some of these people talking about this, how Russian is the last bastion of freedom or something against some kind of tyrannical new world order and the things and the Nazis and all this kind of stuff. And all I could do is, I mean, I look at Russia and I go, you guys are holding them up as some kind of free bastion of they're the last one standing against a new world. Have you seen what's going on in Russia? I mean, have you seen what's going on? I just, I can't wrap my brain around that. That is just, it is definitely into tinfoil hat territory on that. And I can't wrap my idea around somehow this is some large Jewish conspiracy that is then tied back to Nazism in some way, shape, or form. That just does not compute. I know that there's plenty of videos and theories and people out here, and that, I mean, but sorry, I'm just not buying it. It there's just no rational sense for what's going on in that. Let's go over to the phones. We only have one line on hold now. They only one line held on. So let's go over to the phones, and we'll get this caller set up for a return to radio. And they will be the first caller when we jump back onto the radio. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning, Michael. It's Fred. How you been?
Hey, Fred. How you doing, my friend? It's good to hear from you.
Oh, yeah, quite well.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, hold on.
I want to bring up
Hold on.
One of the things, that last one was tough.
Yeah. No. I'm with you on that. It is it's weird. Hold on, Fred. Don't you'll be a good fresh start here when we return to the radio. And so we'll be right back to you here. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. All I want to point out is Russia is just a ways away. From Kotzebue to Big Diomede is 97 miles. From Kotzebue to Anadyr is 580 miles. Yeah. No, it's you can see Russia from your house. Is that what you're saying, Sean? You could see Russia from your house? I mean, I guess if anybody in the United States should be worried, Alaska should be worried, I guess, in theory. And while they've been expanding their Arctic operations in the last 15 to 20 years, they have not definitely don't have the concentration of troops that they have in the east that they have in the west. But again, I think that they would find it very difficult to make it happen. Chris summates my stumbling this morning because I was like trying to chew out the words. Chris says, pretty sure that the Jews and the Nazis were never on the same team. That pretty much summates it in one sentence. Thank you, Chris, for making that succinct. Because you're right. That was kind of what I was trying to wrap my head around. Wait, this is a Jewish conspiracy to prop up Nazis. Again, that's like oil and water, apples and oranges. I just don't see that. I just don't see that happening. But people believe it, man. There are people out there that believe that stuff. Again, the first day when the invasion had happened, and we had that first caller, I don't remember his name, but from Fairbanks, and he was going on and on about how Putin was in the right and it was this Nazi whatever, and I was just like, what are you talking about? I mean, I was so confused. And then I went out and did a little reading, and I realized that it was this whole conspiracy to try, or this whole push to try and make Putin and company some kind of anti-New World Order hero, that because Russia resists the New World Order of this or that somehow they're the only ones that are standing up for the right, and that, that he's this big Christian warrior for blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, wow, there is, there was so much that to try and unpack in that. But the fact that you can look at Russia, which is an authoritarian regime, that's what's going on in Russia. It is an authoritarian regime. That you could look at that and hold that up as somehow they are the bastion or the heroes of the world against some kind of new world order. No, that's just not, no. Yeah, you got to understand a little bit of history there. But the answer is no. I'm not saying Ukraine is pure as the driven snow. Ukraine has got some of its own problems. But for the most part, they are a free-ish market people, free-ish. They are one of the more open and free democratically elected states in Europe, Eastern Europe specifically. And they were the stalwart, they were the bastion or the bulwark against Russia. We made some mistakes. This whole thing of dangling NATO in front of them all that time, we made some mistakes, and we should own up to them. But no, I don't see this as being some kind of death heads legion of Nazi zealots out there trying to keep their, no. What? All right, we're going to jump back into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. All right, continuing now, Firearms Friday. Got a couple lines on hold. We're going to start off with our buddy Fred, who's out in Rhode Island, calling into the program this morning. As always, it's great to hear from him, and we'd like to see what's on his mind. Good morning, my friend. What's happening out there in beautiful RI?
Go on, Michael. How you been?
Good. What's going on in your neck of the word?
Well, this whole thing with the, especially the last call there, you're right, it's tinfoil hat time if there ever was anything. However, I think the Russian thing is just more than the opening act of what's things to come in the world. I think it's going to start out with Russia doing what they're doing. This is going to migrate over to China and what they're planning to do with Taiwan, or what they really like to do with Taiwan. So, it's going to turn into a global situation, and God knows where it's going to go from there, as far as like South America and a few other places that, age-long squabbles have been going on. This could turn into more than just squabbles, the way things are going. So it's going to be very interesting the way this is all going to turn out.
It is. It was interesting. I was reading some analysis yesterday, some of the different choices that are going on around there. And, of course, now we could be creating the perfect storm. It could have the unintended consequences, all the economic sanctions in Russia. One of the unintended consequences of that is that it could make them more vulnerable to having to go into bed with China over the economic sanctions and have China prop up their economy and do some other things. It may force them into bed with them, which again, if it happens, that's also kind of troubling. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different moving parts of this, and it's definitely an interesting thing to watch. But it's heartbreaking at the same time to see all these people be displaced and killed and have to fight for their homes and everything else. It's definitely, we live in interesting times. Let's say that.
Yes, we do. The thing is, though, the UN. I mean, the whole point in establishing the UN was to have these, a safety valve when these issues pop up, and you can bring everybody to the table and sit there and hash out everybody's want list, and prevent these things from happening, prevent wars and conflict, military conflicts from taking place in the world. And apparently, it's a terrible failure. Apparently, because it's these things pop up and everybody just kind of turns their backs and they go at it, and nothing. All you can do is become a spectator, instead of trying to avert war. We turn into a world war if it really gets to hand, especially with nukes. I mean, that's the scary part.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's always
real scary.
Yeah. I mean, that's what
things around.
That's the only thing holding anybody back right now from really giving any assistance to the Ukraine is the fact that the first thing that he did was threaten and rattle the nuclear saber. That's what's holding everybody back right now, for sure. And of course, somebody sent me a message this morning saying the stock market is actually, what was the comment here? Some analysts are pricing in limited nuclear war into their market analysis right now. I mean, I hope not. Nobody wants to see that,
Tactical nukes. Okay. The other point I want to make, Michael, if you got time, is, you talked about the ammo situation with the 7.62 and the Russian rounds. I think there's so many countries over there that are making that stuff other than Russia. I mean, they were more than happy to jump in and fill the void. And then the manufacturers here. You have, it's funny. The ammunition manufacturing in the United States is kind of like beer companies. You wind up with a handful of biggies like Budweiser and Schlitz and this one and that one, and the regular ones, Michelob. And then you wind up with all these little ones, and that's exactly what we have in the ammunition, industry in this country. We have all these little manufacturers, American Arms and this one and that one. And there's so many of them out there. Can you go to a gun store and look at the shelf and say, I never heard it. Here's a brand new brand. Where did it come from?
Right. It's like the craft beer. It's like the craft beer of the ammunition industry.
They'd be more than happy to jump in and make it.
Right. It's like the craft beer of the ammunition industry kind of thing, right? You got the little brewers and you got the big brewers. I mean, if there's enough of a demand, and I think that there is probably enough of a demand for Russian ammo for 7.62 by 39, that eventually some company will step up. And you are right. A lot of the Eastern European nations that are now quasi-free and independent, they could step up because they're using. I mean, the most ironic thing that I find right now in the Ukrainian deal is that both sides are using exactly the same weapon systems. I mean, from tanks to APCs to rifles to everything else. I had to chuckle because every time they showed a Russian column being destroyed, you saw the Ukrainians swarming over it and basically scavenging all the ammo and the anti-tank stuff and everything else because they're all using the same thing. So yeah, I think you're seeing a lot of these Eastern European nations may be able to step up into the gap down the road and maybe fill in some of these things for ammo supply and everything else. But it takes a while for that stuff to spin up. So like I was just saying, I mean, I think if you've got Russian ammo, good for you. If you're looking for it and you find it, you may want to buy it for now because you're probably not going to see a ready supply of it for at least, I would say it would be at least a year or two before any other company could step up into the gap and they could get the import licenses and everything else to get it here. I think that would be part of the problem.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. Have you heard anything about a second hoarding of ammunition coming up? Another shortage.
I have not heard anything yet. I mean, we're still kind of struggling to get just regular ammo. I don't know if we've really come out of the last shortage, but I haven't heard of anything new right out of the gate. Have you? Are you hearing something about that?
Yeah, I was kind of pushing around the other night online, and I kind of ran across a couple of articles that mentioned there's a possibility of a second shortage of ammo coming. Because a lot of government contracts and a lot of international contracts are sending. They want billions with a B. Rounds made. Just for them to satisfy these contracts.
Right.
And they're gonna cut back. There's a good possibility going to cut back the commercial production. If these contracts go through and they get signed off on, it'd be crazy to turn them down. These manufacturers,
right.
Of course, but still, it kind of leaves us a little high and dry if they do it again.
Well, I haven't heard anything new, but it wouldn't surprise me. I know Remington put that new plant online, and that definitely eased some of the congestion. I mean, if the demand continues to outstrip the supply, eventually other manufacturers are either going to, they're going to have, somebody's going to step up into the gap. And like you said, maybe it's the smaller players. Maybe it's the craft brew, ammo manufacturers that'll be doing it. And maybe, if nothing else, this gives everybody a reason to learn how to go out and reload. Maybe that's the way to do it. Fred, thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate it. I got time for one more call if we're quick this morning. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning, Michael. This is Mike from Fairbanks, but I'm down here in Montana. I flew down to help out a family member here in Savage, Montana, but right now I'm visiting some friends over here in northeastern Montana, in the little town called Culbertson. And
Okay.
These guys at the Eller Camps here, Andy Ellerkamp, he's a expert at Fanatic on firearms, and these guys actually know people who have 1 million rounds stocked up, and they've been collecting all their lives. And I think you're right. It's better than collecting silver.
Oh, it definitely. It's more precious metals. The brass and lead is worth more than gold, and at this point, if I had bought all that stuff back in the day, I would be a wealthy man if I wanted to sell it. But that's the question. Do you want to sell it off, or do you want to have it to use? Now, 1 million rounds seems a little excessive to me, but having a few thousand rounds for each of your main calibers that you use, probably not a bad thing when you're all said and done. But Mike, hold the line here. We're going to come up against the break here. We're jumping into it. So hold the line, Mike. We'll be talking to you here during the break. The Michael Duke Show continues. We got more coming up. Don't go anywhere. Hour 2 is dead ahead. We'll be finishing up the show with Willie Waffle. Still got some headlines to get to for Gun Q&A. The Michael Duke Show. Back with more. All right, we're going to go back to Mike here. Sorry about that, Mike, but we were up against the hard break at the top of the hour. So, I mean, what did you learn out of that? That we should all be stocking up on more ammo, or what's your thoughts?
Well, I was amazed that these guys, and they won't sell. You couldn't buy a round off of these guys that own this much ammo, and also Andy's neighbor there, actually it's his uncle, he's got a small factory behind his house where he reloads, and he won't sell. These guys are hardcore, and down here in Montana, I'm amazed at the people who collect firearms, and I guess they just went to a show last week in Glendive, Montana, a big firearm show. It's like it empties the whole town out. I mean, they closed down stores so everybody could participate in the gun show. And they do a lot of trading there. You could bring your firearms and trade there, I guess. And but anyway, I wanted to also talk, Mike, on the irony of the liberal Democrats, how now they want all the citizens of Ukraine to arm themselves with AK-47 automatics. And here in America, you would be arrested for that.
Well, we saw that. The most ironic post on Twitter was the Occupy Democrats post, where they, 6, 8, 10 months ago, they posted up about how we didn't need these weapons of war on the street and everything else, and they had no business being in the hands of private citizens. And then another tweet that they put out a week or two ago that basically said, look at Ukraine go. They're giving out 10,000 rifles to citizens. Repost this if you stand with people being armed in Ukraine and yada, yada. And I'm just like, you guys, I mean, you got no consistency whatsoever. You don't understand the nature of government. If you are so wishy-washy on this, you do not understand the nature of government as a whole.
Yeah, and another irony, Mike, is I'm being satirical here, though, but I am just so upset they're not wearing masks over there during this war. This is just ridiculous. They don't have their masks on.
Yeah. I see that. No, I'm with you. It's kind of there's a lot of irony going on over there. All right. Well, Mike, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
I hope you're safe down there, and we'll wait for you to get back to Alaska. Thanks for calling in.
You got it, buddy.
All right. That leads to back to the chat room here. We're in the top of the hour. Chris said I should watch the documentary by Oliver Stone, which is what Brady mentioned, this Oliver Stone video from the time Crimea was invaded by Russia. And I have not seen the Oliver Stone documentary. I'll go search it out and see if I can watch it this weekend. But again, I'll reserve my judgment till after I've seen it. But again, just the argument, Chris, that Brady was putting out there that somehow these two diametrically opposed things, the Jews and the Nazis, were somehow actually one thing, was, I guess, what really threw the whole thing for me on that. Why does our government appear to care for the rest of the world more than our citizens? Well, because they're not their citizens, I guess. They know better than us how to run our lives, and they want to run everybody else's life too. So, but they got to get them under their thumb before they can do it. Maybe that's what part of the problem is. I don't know, Jimmy. Why is Africa still Africa, says Jim. Good question. Sean goes, why do people always try and spin it as the Nazis? Totenkopf, dead person's head. He's talking about the symbol of the death's head symbol, which has been used in military units for a long time. I mean, like I said, I'm going to go back here and I'll watch this thing and see what we can. I'll watch this documentary and see what it has to say. But as of right now, I have not been swayed by just watching the people on the streets and things that have been going on and the things that they're hitting hospitals and some of these other things with I'm not I'm not buying into it all. And I'm trying to watch the news from every perspective, including the Russian perspective. I've watched some of the Russian newscasts as well on this, just because I'm interested in it, what's going on. Rusty says, doesn't the metal storm weapon use electricity, theoretically shooting up to 1.6 million rounds, though it's not a practical gun? I mean, there's all kinds of things. I mean, the Navy is working on a railgun to mount on their ships. The Navy, you could see the tests. I mean, they are impressive as hell. They are working on railguns for mounting them onto battleships, or I guess basically naval ships. We don't really have any battleships anymore, but they are mounting them. But I mean, they've got to have their own power supply. There's lots of things. But yeah, there's been some super impressive test shots with that. They have one that shot through. I can't remember how many different. I mean, they basically set up steel plates, over the course of this round, and they just, it penetrated everything. And So there's some impressive things out there. I mean, the technology is coming. The rail gun is going to be the next thing in the future. Somebody mentioned earlier that they were shooting stuff out of the sky with lasers. Star Wars is here. Yeah, I mean, they're using high-speed lasers to kill drones and planes and to burn out missiles and do other things. So the technology is advancing. We will have a rail gun eventually. I would just love to have one to shoot just to play around with because I just find the technology fascinating personally. I would love to see something like that. Anyway, we are coming up here on the break. We're going to continue Hour 2 dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Here's my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, it's for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Duke Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or translator, and around the world at michaeldukeshow.com on the internet. Thank you for coming in and joining us. Don't forget, every morning you can also join us in the chat room, which is available on Facebook and on YouTube right now. You can go to either one of those platforms and search up my name and find us there. Facebook.com/Michael Duke Show is the easiest way, and just click on the live video and you'll be in the chat room with the 30 or 40 or 50 people that are in there hanging out with us. And we've been talking about all different kinds of stuff today. It's been kind of a smorgasbord. I got up. I admitted that I woke up late. I overslept this morning. And so I don't normally have usually I try to have some kind of structure to the show. This morning we're just kind of going like, woof, whatever. We're just going everywhere. We've talked about rail guns. We've talked about ammunition. We've talked about Ukraine and Nazis and this and that. And we just kind of been all over the place this morning. I pontificated that I would love to see I'd love to shoot a rail gun. We were talking about Gauss rifles and rail guns. Of course, Dan says, if you want a rail gun, but I want a Mr. Fusion to power my car, which is the Back to the Future thing. There's so much cool technology coming out there. And things are starting to change now, even in the firearm world. We talked about this a while ago, that they're coming out with these new forms of ammo that are like 3-part ammo, where the jacket and the base of the bullet and the jacket are 2 separate parts, and then the projectile. And there's, technology is eventually evolving. The guns have remained pretty static for 150 years. Firearms have remained fairly static in their design and in their implementation, but you're slowly starting to see some changes. And I think that's an interesting science to watch, if nothing else. And so we've been talking about that this morning. We've hit on a couple of the headlines, but nothing super big yet. And I have opened up the phone lines for Q&A. So if you would like to participate this morning, we'd love to hear what you have to say at 907-433-3150. 907-433-3150. 3150. If you'd like to sound off this morning, we would love to hear what you have to say. So for a second, let's talk about, I guess, what not to do. It's a couple of the stories that piqued my interest this morning as I was rapidly trying to because I overslept. I was rapidly trying to find some stories that were interesting to me and that I thought would be interesting to you. And I found this one to be a teaching moment. There's a story here in Bearing Arms talking about this spate of robberies in Houston, Texas. And the worst part about all these robberies is that they are preventable. And this should be a cautionary tale for anybody who decides that they want to go forth armed, that they're going to conceal carry to protect themselves and those around them. And the headline reads, 3,600 guns stolen from cars in Houston last year. Now, stolen guns are problematic for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, because they deny you the ability to defend yourself. Second of all, you are arming some criminal because obviously they're a criminal because they are stealing your gun. And it means that you're, you should be paying attention to what's going on. The problem, though, is that people are obviously making it very easy in Houston for this to go on. Houston police are warning of a concerning trend involving a rise in the number of firearms stolen from cars. It's out of our control, said Sergeant Tracy Hicks from the Houston Police Department's Auto Theft Crimes Task Force. People have to stop leaving their guns in their car. According to Hicks, more than 3,600 guns were stolen from cars in Houston throughout 2021. In January of 22, the pattern continued with more than 350 guns taken from vehicles in Houston. These people who are stealing guns from cars, they're people who aren't allowed to have guns. Felons, says Hicks. They're also selling them to people who aren't allowed to have guns. It's like more than 10 a day are stolen out of these cars. And while the people who were robbed, and the people who were robbed, now they are victims, but again, you have to, there's a certain amount of responsibility. 10 a day. There's a certain amount of responsibility that comes when you go out and you decide to go forth armed. That includes making sure that your gun is secure at all time. And that's actually a rule for whether it's on your person or whether you're putting it someplace else. You have to be able to secure and know what's going on with this firearm. And leaving your guns in your car, I mean, it makes no sense from a tactical standpoint. It makes no sense. Secondly, you're just making it easy for the criminals. I mean, sometimes you have to. I'm going to go into a federal building, right? I'm going to go into some place where there's a metal detector or something like that. Okay, well, that's great. Well, do you have a lockbox in your car? Do you have a car? They make car safes, car gun safes for your vehicles that are, you can bolt them to the frame of the car. You can bolt them to the floorboards. I mean, you can do that. Your firearm should be secure. In Texas, it's a constitutional carry state, so there's almost no reason to leave them in your car. Now, also, if you have smart criminals and they know, for example, that you have to go into a courthouse or a post office or somebody, maybe they're just targeting those areas. But to me, I look at this and I just go, okay, look, you are trying to be the responsible citizen to take responsibility for your own personal protection. Why don't you go that extra mile to make sure that your firearm is secure in your car? I mean, is it just laziness? You put your gun in your car so you don't have to think about it. They figure, I can just grab my gun from my car if I need it. But you don't. Can you really? I mean, let's face it. If you need a firearm, you probably need a firearm right now. Right? I mean, you probably need a firearm now. So does it make sense to just leave it in your vehicle? But again, that's always been my complaint, by the way, about these places where people when Alaska, for example, you couldn't bring a gun in, you couldn't bring your concealed carry firearm into banks. And I used to think, man, if I was a criminal, I knew exactly what I would do. I would park myself in a parking lot of a bank and watch people come in and go out. And if it looked like they were disarming themselves, if I could see through the windows of their car and they looked like they were disarming themselves when they went inside, I mean, that'd be the first car I'd break into. Right? It makes no sense whatsoever. But this should be a lesson. Again, this should be a cautionary tale for all of you, my friends, who go forth armed. If you find yourself leaving your gun in your vehicle with any kind of regularity or frequency, you probably need to invest in the car lock boxes, the gun safes that they get for cars, where it could be it's bolted to the frame, and it's going to take more than a few minutes for them to get into it. So anyway, that's my cautionary tale on that one for today. Let's go over to the phones at 433-3150, the Pivotel call-in line for open forum on gun Q&A. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Aaron Griffin calling from Kodiak. How are you guys doing this morning?
Good, Aaron. How is life on the Emerald Isle?
It's very rainy right now, although that's not like it always is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that just sounds like another day on Kodiak.
Yeah, I mean, it's been typical. I mean, it's just been the way. I know spring's not quite here yet, but we're close.
Right.
I was calling. You were talking about gun technologies, and I had a thought. It's interesting how the gun technology is very closely, I think, related with oil tech, quite frankly, or new green tech. It turns out that gunpowder is a very efficient form of storing energy, and similar to what hydrocarbons, like whether you're talking about gasoline or natural gas, the reason that the technology hasn't morphed into the new stuff is because they just haven't figured out how to store energy better.
Right.
And once they do, then the free market and capitalism will morph that into the next better product. You know?
No, and it's always good to see that kind of exploration. I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, Heckler & Koch was making they were making a new style. It was like their DARPA, they were doing experiments, and they had created a caseless ammunition for their rifles that they were testing out, and they were putting it was some kind of high explosive where the bullets were actually embedded in it, and then it would fire inside the rifle. And it was novel and unique, but as you said, regular old gunpowder worked just as well. But that's the kind of things you got to take those steps to figure out what works and what doesn't. And I think some of this new, like you're seeing now, some of these new hybrid rounds that are like three-piece shells, three-piece casings, they're utilizing some higher and more powerful. They're doubling the pressures available from some of this, being able to concentrate it and things like that. So you're right. I agree. I think that is.
Muzzle velocity is a big deal. Yeah.
I'm sorry. That what you broke up there.
I know you've seen these. Like that's when you look at like your muzzle energies and velocities and stuff. All those things kind of like incorporate into that. I don't know if you saw the three finalists. Two of the three finalists for the Army's replacement of the AR platform had composite casings.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah, we talked about that 3-4 weeks ago. That was two of them had the composite different 3-part casings and things like that for the new modern weapon system. Which I find fascinating that's. I found it fascinating that that's where the technology change was happening, not in the rifle itself, but in the ammunition component of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No doubt. Good conversation.
Well,
Have a good day.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you signing off and being part of it. All right, folks, we are up against the break. We are about to jump into it. We've got Chris Chang, Top Shot champion, Season 4. He's going to be joining us here in just a few moments, and we are going to continue our discussions of guns and the Second Amendment and so much more. It is The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Your mental suppository. The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we are in the break right now, and we are joined by Top Shot champion Chris Chang, who is with us right now. Good morning, my friend. How are you doing?
Hey, great as always, and excited to be on the show today.
Well, it's good to have you. I woke up. I was so discombobulated. I woke up late this morning. I never oversleep. Like, I haven't overslept in like 4 years, and I overslept this morning, and so I'm a little discombobulated trying to get everything put together. So it's good that you remembered that you were calling in, because I
indeed.
I certainly didn't remember that you were calling in. So I appreciate your stalwartness on that. So how are things going in your world, Chris? What's happening? What should we talk about today when we come back to the radio?
Yeah, I mean, I think, boy, the Ukraine situation is, clearly been very top of mind for me, and there's very direct, applications for the Second Amendment and this value of an armed civilian populace.
Yeah.
Is obviously very top of mind. We could talk a little bit more about NFTs if that's of interest. There's been continued interest in the firearms community and industry about NFTs, and let's see. And I mean, Washington State, I was reading a little bit about how they're having a magazine capacity restriction that's coming. That's going to be put in place in I think next month in April.
Yeah.
So there's this big rush of everyone, buying as many standard capacity magazines as they can before this, silly ban takes place.
They'll have 2 million more new magazines in Washington before this whole thing is done, which I think is totally kind of, antithetical to what they're trying to do. But, it's counterintuitive, but that's where they're going. Okay, well, good. Well, I think we've got some stuff to talk about, especially on the Ukraine side of things. It's kind of interesting. Did you see the tweet from we were just talking about this, the tweet from Occupy Democrats? Did you happen to see that?
No. Mm-mm.
Oh, so I should try and pull it up during the break here. But, it's ironic that you got a group like Occupy Democrats who are part of the CHOP and the Chaz and the whole thing in Seattle and the takeover and all this kind of stuff, where they have been tweeting out about how American citizens didn't need weapons of war and that guns were bad, assault rifles, even though, again, they were supporting all these, takeovers of these different places, and how this is bad. And then when the day that the Ukrainian government announced that they were passing out a gun to any citizen that wanted one, and not just a gun, but a full-on, full-auto AK-74 or AK-47 battle rifle, full auto, rock and roll, the whole deal. And all of a sudden they're like, look, yes, this is what they're doing. Stand with Ukraine. Retweet this. They're doing this. They're arming the citizens. And it's just like the hypocrisy. This is the same group of people that say the police are bad, but only the police should have guns. That we should defund the police, but the police should be the only ones that are allowed to have firearms to protect. I mean, it's just the irony of it is so thick you could cut it with a knife.
Wow. Yeah, that's ridiculous. I'd love to talk more about that on air.
No, exactly. So we can get into that and everything else. You guys ready for spring down there?
Oh yeah, I mean we've actually had great weather. It's actually ironically concerning because we're in a drought situation here in California, which seems like a perpetual thing. So we don't want too much nice weather. We actually need the rain, and we haven't really gotten much of it this winter.
Yeah, well, I guess it's nice to have nice weather. I mean, here it's 5 below, it's 20 above, it's snow. No, it's rain. No, now it's 40 degrees. Nope, now it's 5 degrees. I mean, it's just like It can't make up its mind up here. We've had like false spring like 4 times already. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. But I guess the best thing about sunny CA is that the weather never changes. Really, I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
What is it? 5 degrees is a big swing for you guys or something. It's all said and done. All right, well, hold the line, Chris. We're going to jump back into it here in just a second. TopShotChris.com is his website. Chris Chang, author of the book Shoot to Win, and Top Shot champion from season 4. We're going to continue with him here in just a second. And no, Brian, I did not remember. That's what I was trying to tell him. I was so gamboozled this morning, I forgot. Luckily, he remembered. Here we go, The Michael Duke Show. All right, welcome back to the program. Like I said, waking up late had me all bamboozled, but luckily Chris Chang, he knows his stuff. He remembers. He could put stuff on his calendar. Chris Chang, Top Shot champion, season 4 of the show Top Shot, author of the book Shoot to Win, comes on and talk to us about all the firearms news from his perspective down there in sunny California. Good morning, Chris, my friend. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great here. I am not bamboozled, and I'm wide awake and very excited to be chatting with you and your listeners about the Second Amendment, guns, and gun culture.
I love it. I love it. All right, well, let's talk a little bit here about Ukraine, because I think, of course, it's been basically swamping the news cycle. I mean, COVID what? I mean, it's all Ukraine all the time right now. And one of the most amazing things that I've seen here recently is the fact that the Ukrainian citizens have, basically joined together hand in hand, taken up arms. The Wall Street Journal's had some very interesting articles about this, interviewing some of the more prominent members of Ukrainian society who have gone out there and become members of these citizens' brigades. And, I mean, they are ready to fight for their freedom. They're ready to fight for to always be free. And I find it just a modern day equivalent of what happened at Lexington and Concord.
Yeah, it is. I've been so inspired watching Ukrainian citizens, right? Your average people taking up arms in defense of their country and freedom and democracy. And as an IT person, I read this BBC article lately that really resonated with me, where the article said, tech people turning in their keyboards for guns.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw an article about a programmer he's like, last week I was on a keyboard, programming, and he goes, today I'm in the field with a rifle in the dirt trying to defend my family. I mean, yeah.
You're right. And that notion is, I think, wild for many Americans to think about, right? Right, if our day jobs, right, if the United States, if we ever got invaded and we had to just abandon our day jobs, right, and take up arms in defense of our country, I mean, that is a totally foreign kind of concept, right, to us, right, that we would ever have to do that. But right, this is something that's happening in Ukraine, and I think the problem I think a lot of Americans we have sometimes is when we hear international news that it's something that happens, quote, over there, right, and things that happen over there just could never happen here. And I want to challenge that notion, right, that things that happen anywhere in the world could easily happen here in the United States. So and that's why we have the Second Amendment, right? This is our opportunity to be an armed population that is trained, right? That I've been, a professional marksman for 10 years now, and I was, a recreational shooter before that. But if you can imagine, put yourself in the shoes of that Ukrainian programmer or the Ukrainian salesperson, right, who sells, widgets, right, for his day job, and all of a sudden, without having decades of training, is just thrown into a war. I'm inspired by those that are volunteering for the war, but wouldn't it be better if the civilian population had an opportunity to have years and decades, right, to train their marksmanship skills? So it is, I think, a very interesting lesson, I think, for America, and to really think about what is the value of the Second Amendment, and let's look at what's happening in Ukraine and having this tyrannical government in Russia coming in and trying to occupy and take over their country.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. Somebody in the chat room mentions that, what about the survey that suggested a sizable number of so-called Americans would flee rather than fight? We've seen that in Ukraine, too. I mean, 2 million, half of the population of Kiev, has left, men, women, and children. So it's not everybody who stayed to fight, but those who are inspired to will stop it. And they've stopped, what was feared to be the biggest, deadliest, ugliest monster in the room, the Red Army. They have slowed it down and ground it to a halt. Will they be able to do it in the long run is another question. But, just think about this. These are people who, many of them no longer have homes. Their homes or their apartments or their towns have been shelled into oblivion. And really, in a lot of cases, these people have got nothing more to lose, right? They're fighting for their homeland. They're fighting for their families. And, it is inspiring to watch. It's distressing to see the level of chaos and damage and everything else, and it hurts your heart. But at the same time, it's inspiring to see people stand up and say, we're going to do what we need to do.
Absolutely. And, this war is totally pointless with respect to the loss of human life and destruction. And it has been also, to veer away from firearms for just a second, it has been very interesting to see how quickly the international community has responded in pressuring Russia with, financial sanctions that we have never seen at this speed and scale. And so, I hope, like I think most Americans and most people around the world, I hope that this war ends soon, right? That there's a ceasefire and Russia just pulls back, because, war is, it's rarely a good thing. It's been a rough 2 years too, right? With COVID,
Right.
And right here we are coming out of the pandemic, and geez, right here we have, this other, globally disturbing action here that is, we just have a normal life for once. So we'll see what happens.
Out of the frying pandemic and into the fire, right? That's kind of where we're at right now. But there are some lessons to be learned here as well. This argument about, we hear this now, this has been the rhetoric for the last 2 or 3 years now from a lot of the anti-gun people is, we don't need these weapons of war on the street. Now, if you really broke that down, you realize that pretty much any modern-day firearm has its roots in warfare. Whether you're talking about a lever-action Winchester, which was standard issue for the U.S. Army back in the day, to the Remington Model 700, which is the basis for the M24 sniper platform, to whatever, most guns have their roots in warfare or military action. So that's kind of a misleading statement to begin with. But here we see what happened in Ukraine. They opened up their gun laws in the week prior to the invasion, and then the government itself started handing out tens of thousands of actual military-grade firearms. And they were saying, anybody that wants one, come down and get one. We're going to give it to you.
And not just military-grade firearms, but surface-to-air missiles and rocket launchers and anti-tank munitions. And these are a lot of times, like, these are civilians who are getting trained very quickly, right, in the use of these weapons. And I think a lot of Americans aren't quite wrapping our heads around how these are untrained civilians who are getting trained very quickly in their use of all of these, quote, weapons of war and military grade weapons. And look, like, at the end of the day, when war comes to your doorstep, you need people and you need weapons. And without those two components, how can any country or any people fight back? So having the people, having the weapons. It just, for me, it is as simple as that.
Well, and the abrupt about face from many people out there, including, we were talking about the Occupy Democrats tweet, where at one point they were saying, oh, we don't need these weapons of war and guns are bad and blah, blah, blah. And then the next tweet, 3 months later when the Ukraine thing happens, look, they're giving out guns. If you support the Ukrainian people, retweet this. They should be, this is great that they're giving out 10,000 automatic AK-47s. And I just find it ironic. Well, it's okay over there, but it's not okay here. It makes me scratch my head.
Yeah, it is definitely a head scratcher. And, the anti-gun, gun-grabbing camp, they love saying conflicting things like this all the time, right? That for some reason, right, gun rights aren't good enough. They're not something that we should have here. But for some reason, right, guns are good in other places that aren't here, right? It's
right.
sort of not. It's sort of almost like a NIMBYism, like a not in my backyard,
right,
kind of mentality, right? It's like, oh, I don't want guns here, but other countries, if they want guns, okay, whatever, out of sight, out of mind. And I think a lot of gun grabbers just don't understand or appreciate this principle of a trained, armed civilian population. And I also understand why. I mean, I think for a lot of gun grabbers, the thought of a non-professional civilian being armed it can be a scary thought, because I think for a lot of gun grabbers, it's the professionals like the military and law enforcement, like security guards, et cetera, et cetera. They're a little more comforted with them having guns. But like we're talking about with Occupy Democrats, well, they also don't trust the police. Wait, so right, if you don't trust the police, but you're saying, right, that they should have guns, like, well, wait, which is it? Right? It's sort of, it doesn't make sense. It's very conflicted.
It is conflicted and it's crazy. Boy, the time's running out fast. We're down to about a minute and a half here. Real quickly, Washington State's about to enact a standard capacity magazine ban, meaning anything 30 rounds is going to be illegal. That's had the opposite effect. Give me your thoughts on that in about 60 seconds.
Yeah, we saw the same thing happen here in California, and I keep on warning listeners in Alaska and in other parts of our country that what happens in California and other states with respect to gun control, it could easily come to you. And there are people like me that are trying to to speak out and push back and fight all these gun control measures. And so, in Washington State, I mean, people are rushing to gun shops and placing online orders for standard capacity magazines before they're banned. And it's a really sad situation, and I hope we get that turned around.
It'll have the opposite effect. They'll have 2 million more magazines before the law goes into effect. Chris Chang,
bingo.
Top Shot champion. Hold the line, my friend. Thank you so much. Folks, we're out of time. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Streaming live every weekday morning, 6 to 9 a.m. on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
One final bite here. I'll give Chris one final bite at the apple. We're in the break, but Chris, I find it ironic that they keep doing this. And there's actually been a question. I think it was Bearing Arms that said, will this lead to an outflow? Will it prompt a 2A exodus out of the state of Washington? Because they just keep piling stupid law on top of stupid law. What are your thoughts on that?
It's an interesting question because, Washington State, at least from the perspective of a Californian, I've viewed Washington State with respect to Second Amendment freedoms as a very strong pro-2A state. So my perception from what I've been speaking to some of my Washington, state resident friends, that they are used to freedom, right? That they are used to it, they appreciate it, and they celebrate their Second Amendment freedoms. And now that they're seeing those freedoms restricted, it could, result in an outflow. To be frank, I hope that doesn't happen, because here's why. In order to fight and push back against restrictions, you have to have people who are able to vote
in the state,
who are able to push back. And if you flee the state, well, guess what? You literally are handing a victory to the gun grabbers.
And this
so
is
I hope,
this is one of the reasons why you haven't left California, right? I mean,
exactly. And I hope that Washington State residents who are pro Second Amendment don't flee the state. This is literally a moment where you have to stand your ground and fight.
The irony of this is that this is all being driven pretty much by King County. The Seattle area and Olympia and that kind of stuff, that, the Western Washington and on the other side of the hills and in Southern Washington, it's kind of a whole different story. And this is that's also analogous to California, where everything's coming out of Sacramento, and Northern California is like, we hate you people. We wish you'd fall into the sea. And I mean, it's really what it's coming. It's coming out of these more urban areas, and it's crazy. Some of the Eastern Washington counties, according to Jim in the chat room, said they're trying to join Idaho at this point. I mean, that's exactly. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's something we will obviously be continuing to watch. And I mean, I know the magazine capacity restrictions are being challenged in the courts too. And frankly, that's where I think we will win and where we need to win to put this whole magazine capacity restriction tactic. Let's put this to bed and not have it spread across the rest of our country.
Well, we've already seen the Ninth Circuit come out and say no, and now it's been appealed, and we'll see where this goes. But I agree. I think that eventually we will be victorious in the courts, and I think the Supreme Court is eventually going to have to address this at some point as well. And I know that there's several cases that are making their way to the Supreme Court. And hopefully this becomes a component of one of those cases. So,
yep, agreed.
We'll see it. Chris, my friend, as always, thank you for coming in. Thanks for being again so stalwart and dedicated. I can't believe I was so scattered this morning. I just can't believe that I forgot. So,
no worries. I got you.
You got my back. That's what I like. I appreciate it. Thank you, my friend. It's good to hear from you. I hope you have a great month.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, Chris Chang, Top Shot champion, season 4. Of the show, Top Shot. Yeah, baby. Yeah. All right. We're going to be talking about Willie Waffle here in just a moment for the weekend movie review. What else is going on here? Washington State has become California, says Terry, thanks to Inslee. Yeah, I mean, agreed. And like I said, it's Western Washington. It's that King County area. They're the ones that are driving all this discussion and everything else, and it's totally frustrating to watch this go on and see these things happen. And I know Washington gun owners are pulling their hair out. We saw the mandatory background check bill go into effect, the mandatory background check bill where you had to get that background check before you sold your firearm, and we've seen that the compliance rate on that has been almost zero at this point. So maybe that civil disobedience is going to lead a big part of this going forward. It's crazy. If you have a 30-round magazine and you add a mag restrictor to make a 28 shot, like a pump action. I mean, that's the thing. They're saying, I mean, in these cases, they're making it no more than 7 rounds or no more than 10 rounds, or, they're picking this arbitrary number out, and it makes no sense, for what they're doing there. And it very, very frustrating. World War II, they handed out a bandolier rifle and ammo. Alaska, somebody mentioned Alaska Territorial Guard. I like the Ruger PC carbine, uses Glock and Ruger mags, says Gary. We're talking about some different stuff in the chat room here. The popular military ammo is nuts and unobtainable. What's left? 7.5 French, 6.5 Swede, 7.65 Argentine, 8mm Lebel, and 6.5 Corcano. I mean, yeah, again, if you don't have your ammo supply already stocked up, you're behind the power curve at this point. That's the fact. That's the fact. Sean says, what makes more sense, an AK-47, AKM, or Ruger Mini 30? I would go with the AK if it was me. Because of just availability of parts and mags and everything else. All right, phone's ringing. Time to go. The Michael Duke Show. Willie Waffle up next. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Whoa, TGIFF. Thank goodness it's, well, Firearms Friday, and finally Friday. FFFF. But we're done with the firearms part of the show today. We're jumping into the entertainment review with our good friend Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Good morning, my friend. What's the haps? What's going on?
Oh, something that kind of started coming out later this week, something I'm kind of excited about. After The Batman was a big financial success, you knew there were going to be, some additional things happening.
Sure.
And we didn't announce a sequel this week. We didn't announce anything other than a new HBO Max series about the Penguin.
Oh, well, I mean, at least DC, I mean, they had to get something right eventually, right? I mean, that was the whole thing. They've been waiting on this forever to get one of them right. And so now they can capitalize on it like Marvel's been doing for Disney.
Oh yeah, and they're kind of following that Marvel pattern. This is going to help us get ready for the next Batman movie. So we will see Colin Farrell as the Penguin becoming more than just kind of the mob lackey that he is in this movie. We're going to see him rising up through the ranks and truly becoming the Penguin before movie number 2 comes out.
Well, and it's interesting how movie stars who used to disdain TV are now all about streaming. You got me a streaming gig? I'll stick with that for years, right?
Oh, yeah, and let's be honest, what really made it happen was, boy, it pays pretty well. It pays better than it used to.
Right.
And, and that's part of it, but I think, the other part of it is I think what you're alluding to, too, is that, television has a much more vaunted position in Hollywood these days, really starting with The Sopranos and seeing kind of these great TV shows that were so amazing, The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Mad Men, The Americans. I mean, things that the actors looked at and said, I could sink my teeth into that. I could really enjoy it. And streaming kind of makes it even better because you don't have to make a commitment to do a full 20 episodes.
Right.
You can do 6 episodes, 7 episodes, and be done with it.
Right. No, it is kind of interesting to see how that's flipped around because it used to be you did television as a stepping stone to get into the movies, and you never went backwards. You didn't sully yourself to go back to the little box after you hit the silver screen. And now it's like, oh, baby, give me one of them series on Netflix or Amazon or wherever, and I'll make a mint.
Oh, yeah, and especially, hey, let me take, why did Colin Farrell want to play the Penguin? Okay, if you've seen The Batman, I'm not giving anything away, it's not the biggest role in the movie.
Right.
It's a decent role, but, he's thinking long term. He's thinking, well, I can also get that little series that's going to lead up to the next movie. Then I can be in the second movie. So, you get somebody of magnitude, somebody who has a big name, who suddenly says, I'll take some lesser part. A great example, Gwyneth Paltrow in the Avengers movies,
Right.
if she was more dedicated, she could probably have her own show right now.
Right, exactly. But she's too busy working on Goop, so it don't matter. It's
Oh God, help us all! Saving the planet one moron by one moron.
Exactly.
Here,
Let me sell you this magical rock. All right. Well, that's good. That's good to know. What else have we got here? I don't even know where to start. Oh, I guess we should start with the Muppets, man. They're getting a
Isn't this
spin-off.
great?
Yeah, this is amazing.
We're going to get a Muppets spin-off show on Disney Plus, and this is the best part. It is going to focus in on the Electric Mayhem Band, baby.
Oh, man. Dr. Teeth, Animal. I can't wait.
Yep, and I love the story. The story is going to revolve around their attempts to make their first album. So, all the dealings with the agents in the studio and recording and dealing with fame. And I just think this to me has the potential to be one of my favorite Disney Plus shows of all time.
Well, you got to love yourself some classic Muppets. And, of course, the band was always they always fit him in somewhere. It was always kind of a fun thing to have in there, and now you get a chance to have the whole thing. That sounds like fun. I mean, that's some good stuff that can keep on giving right there.
It's going to be fantastic. I'm already sitting back going, this is going to be awesome. Nothing could go wrong.
I'm waiting for them to do, I'll be honest with you, since Disney's got the hooks in it now, I'm waiting for them to do more of the the retellings of classic tales, you know, like Treasure Island and like they did with Treasure Island and A Christmas Carol and did all that. I would love to see them pick up some other classics and do them that way because those are so much fun.
Oh yeah, or even I think it would be funny to watch them redo Disney movies. Like, why couldn't they redo Beauty and the Beast, the Muppet version?
Oh man, that would be so great. And now everybody's all one big happy family, so why not? You know, right? Or maybe you could talk him into doing the Muppets Sopranos.
Oh dear God.
Oh Lord.
Fozzie Bear is Tony Soprano.
Oh my gosh, that would just be so crazy. All right, so they're going to make that. When is that coming up?
They don't have a date on it right now. It's kind of in that pre-production mode. The producer of a TV show, The Goldbergs, Adam Goldberg, is really kind of going to be bringing this along and developing it. There's just not a date. If I had to guess, I'm going to say early next year.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm down with that. I can do it. Nicole Kidman is back, but not in a good way, I guess. She had a little accident.
Yes, Nicole Kidman is on the disabled list.
Okay.
Yep. She missed the big Oscar nominees Academy Awards luncheon this week, which is one of the big highlights of the entire Oscar season. And it was revealed that she was ordered by her doctor to stay home in Nashville because she has torn her hamstring.
Ow.
Now, I've seen those legs. I didn't think there was any kind of muscle or hamstring anywhere on those things.
Right.
But, it turns out she has injured it before.
Oh.
So this is a recurrence. She's making a new Amazon series called Expats. Hey, there we go. Big movie star doing a series on streaming this time for Amazon. And she was injured. And I don't know why, because the story of Expats, it's not like some action movie. It's not like she's going to be fighting the penguin or something. It's basically about some women living overseas.
Right. Well, and she just came off I Love Lucy, and she did another one recently too that was some kind of psychological thing. So I mean, she's doing a lot of work for the streaming services. Apparently, she's got bills to pay. So good for her. Good for her.
She could pay my bills with all that money.
Yeah, I know, really, exactly. I don't really care about baseball, but give me a thumbnail here on the. I mean, just again, Apple is going to be streaming baseball.
Yeah. So the quick is Apple Plus TV will have a Friday night doubleheader starting as soon as they figure out the baseball season. Yesterday they just kind of figured out they're going to play. So every Friday night you'll be able to watch 2 baseball games on Apple TV Plus. And maybe without a subscription for the first month or so to try to entice you to join.
Ah, okay. Well, there you go. I can't get Apple TV. I've got a Fire TV, and apparently the app is super buggy. I was going to get it for Foundation or something, and I started reading the reviews on the app, and they're like, oh, no, this thing's a hot mess. And so I don't know. I mean, I guess you have to have an Apple TV or an Apple device to watch it, I guess.
Well, I watch Apple TV on my phone, and can I admit that it's an Android?
Well, no, that's fine. Yeah. Well, maybe that app works. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm not getting the full Apple TV Plus because, I go into that little critics thing they set up for us. I'm sorry.
Well, there you go. That's all right. Shut up. That's fine. All right. Well, let's move over to the movies. Disney Plus has got a movie. I don't know if it's a tweener movie, young adult. Is it a family movie? Turning Red.
It wants to be all of those things, and frankly, it should have been. It should have been put in theaters. I mean, it's only going to be on Disney Plus. It is the latest Pixar, sensation, and it is about this young girl. She's a Canadian Chinese kid living in Toronto, and she's 13 years old. And 13, that's a rough time.
Oh man, yeah, you know it.
But what makes it even rougher is that when her emotions get the best of her, she turns into a big red panda.
That could be awkward.
Yes.
In the teenage years, as you're going through the changes and everything else, and your hormones and your anger and all that. So every time she gets anxious and too excited, she just poof turns into a panda.
And of course hilarity ensues. And it's everything you're going to expect it to be from these Pixar movies, and they just always keep delivering it so well. All the complicated relationships between her and her mother, the emotions that the 13-year-old kid's going through, her great friends. This is a gang of friends that all have a good time and all love this boy band, and they all want to go see them in concert, but her mom doesn't really approve of all that.
Okay.
And let's not lie, turning into a big red panda is somewhat of a metaphor, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but it's dealt with very tastefully. I don't think the little kids are going to get it, and that's all right. So I think it's like 3.5 waffles. I think
really?
It's just refreshing and fun and exciting. You even have Sandra Oh playing her mom.
Well, Pixar does a pretty good job. I can't think of a single one that's really been a dud, so not a bad deal. All right, so Disney Plus, Turning Red, available now?
It is available, yes, Friday, today, and you can watch it without having to pay the extra like $6 or $13 or $20. It's part of your subscription.
Okay, all right, I'm down with it. The next one's one I've been waiting for. The Adam Project, the new movie from Ryan Reynolds. He's a time traveler who comes back to 2022. He's got to hook up with his 12-year-old self to save the future. I've seen a couple trailers of this, and it looks fun and exciting. Give me the dope here.
I think, if you're a Ryan Reynolds fan, you're in, you're happy, you're excited. It's going to be on Netflix, or is on Netflix, pardon me. And, I think what you've got, again, you kind of get the Ryan Reynolds you expect. He's going to be kind of a smart aleck. He's going to kind of be cracking some jokes. And imagine putting him together with his 12-year-old self.
Oh, man.
Yes, there's going to be a little bit of a contest there to get the laughs. But what the movie, I think, layers in, and maybe could layer in a little bit better, is kind of the dramatic effect. I mean, let's face it, this guy is trying to do something very, very big. He's trying to, like they say, save the future.
Right.
And, so we're learning all about his family life and the drama that he had and how this plays into the future. And I think that is what really kind of makes the movie more interesting. I'm going to go like 3 waffles. I think Reynolds is a very underrated dramatic actor. I think he's pretty good. And then you throw in Mark Ruffalo playing his dad. Oh. That's going to be kind of cool.
Well, I agree. I think Ryan Reynolds, he could just be a one note where he does basically Deadpool in every movie, but he actually has got some chops beyond that. And when they let him do it, he really can stretch. And I think that I'm looking forward to seeing that for sure. So 3 waffles for the Adam Project on Netflix right now. Ryan Reynolds. Go check it out and watch it. We're actually ahead of schedule here, which is good because I wanted to get to this. First of all, did you get a chance to start watching Resident Alien? I recommended that last week to you. Yeah, I knew it. Just never mind. Why do I even bother giving you recommendations?
I found this new show called The Dropout, and I got into it and I watched the first few episodes.
Okay, all right. So that's fine. Never mind. I'm never giving you another recommendation again. But... Son, you kill me. But to the listeners, I just finished this last week. We just finished watching 1883 on Paramount Plus. Now, this is a prequel to Yellowstone, and I have to say it is one of the finest Western genre shows I have ever seen in my life. I was blown away by this show. It was absolutely just amazing. The accuracy that they did for like everything from props to saddles to life on the frontier and what it was like to cross the plains and the family and the drama and the sadness. It is definitely not safe for work. It's pretty rough because it's pretty true to life as far as what it would have been like. Absolutely an astound. It is a full 4.5 waffles for me for 1883. Damn. Yeah, I mean, you should go watch it right now. So, but never mind, you never will. That'll be fine.
I'm going to be snowed in this weekend.
There you go.
I'm going to have some time on my hands.
10 hours, you can get it done. Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
You got it, man. I'll talk to you next week.
We will see you next week. Folks, out of time. Monday. We'll see you then. Have a great day. I got to tell you, Willie, it's not often that I just go, I mean, literally wow. Just so many wows watching this show. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I like Westerns, not all Westerns, but I really like some of the epic ones and some of the big ones. But this was just so shocking in its, I guess its raw honesty and brutality of what it was like to try and cross the plains from Texas to Oregon, and this journey of James Dutton, who's of course the progenitor of John Dutton in the show Yellowstone, and it's the story all centered or told around from the eyes of his 18-year-old daughter, and of course Sam Elliott and I mean just all these people in this movie, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, a bunch of good character actors. It's an amazing experience. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is absolutely amazing.
It's essentially the Oregon Trail, the movie, isn't it?
You know, you're not kidding, man. I mean,
yeah, I mean, somebody got dysentery, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, somebody got dysentery and has died. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of growing up, I read nothing but Louis L'Amour for the longest time when I was a kid, early on growing up when I first started doing some real heavy, still getting into heavy reading. And I read everything I could get my hands on to learn more about the West and westward expansion. And, a lot of times it's just kind of brushed over in the movies, how brutal life was, how, you leave with a wagon train with, 90 people and 30 wagons, and by the time you get done, there's 4 wagons and 26 people left, Yeah. And you're just like...
half of them are missing a limb.
Exactly. And you're just like, oh my God, it was just amazing, the storytelling in this show. There's a 45-minute after thing, or behind-the-scenes thing that I watched afterwards, that also just explained, what his vision was. This is the guy, the creator of Yellowstone. His name just escapes me right at this second. Mm-hmm. But he's the same guy that wrote Yellowstone, and he said, "I wanted to tell the truth." He said, "That's what I wanted. I wanted it to be as truthful as I could make it, from how the Indians actually interacted with people." He is like, and one of the things he lists off, he said, you know what the number one cause of death was on the trails from east to west, leading from east to west? He goes, number one was being rolled over by a wagon. Number two was disease. Number 3 was weather. He said being killed by Indians was down at 8 or 9 on the list of things that killed the most people out there. And so he portrayed the Indians in a very different way, which I appreciated because it was very much like Louis L'Amour wrote about in his books. But the storytelling is just... I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is definitely worth the, 9 or 10 hours or whatever. It's 10 episodes, and I think they're 45 to 55 minutes apiece. And you'll be shook. By the time it's over, you'll be like, wow, that was an experience. Absolutely amazing.
And this is the one this is Sam Elliott's in this too, isn't he?
Yeah, Sam Elliott is in it. Yep, and Tim.
Yeah, because he wants to tell you that this is the better alternative to the power of the dog.
Oh, and I saw a thing last night. Apparently, Benedict Cumberbatch is all broke up and woke and butthurt about the fact that Sam Elliott said you guys are a bunch of sissies. Because Sam Elliott said, we don't. He basically said that broke the dog has got a bunch of, queer, gay, whatever word he used, and he goes, that's just BS, basically. And apparently Benedict Cumberbatch got all butthurt about it, and I saw that headline last night. But yeah, no, this is Sam Elliott at his finest. It is raw. It is rough. It is raw. Okay. It is real life. You will look at this and go, oh my God, I cried. I cried a couple times watching this thing. It is so intense. But it is amazing. It really gives you a behind-the-scenes look of what the westward journey in America looked like. And it gives you a whole newfound respect for the people who founded the West. That's for sure.
Cool.
So
I should watch this before I watch Resident Alien.
Yeah, you're never going to watch it anyway, so I don't know why I bothered telling you. But it's
once I get through the new episode of The Dropout, I'm going to have to watch something. I'm going to be snowed in.
Snowed in. What'd you guys get? 3 inches?
We're going to get 6 to 12.
6 to 12. I drove home in 6 to 12 inches of snow the other day. All right. Well, it's fun, my friend. So go watch it and enjoy it. Thanks for coming on this morning. I appreciate it. Let's do this again next week.
Hey, I'll be there.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Folks, we're out of time. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.